Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for being so patient. My name is Dr. Jennifer Butler, and I'm the director of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion for the College of Business and Analytics here at SIU. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I want to welcome everyone to our event entitled The First Gen's Guide to Corporate America. Thank you for joining us. And I have just a couple of announcements and then I'll turn it over to Carla. So the first one is today's event is being co-sponsored by the Hispanic Latino Resource Center. And we're really excited to be hosting this during Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month. We'll drop in the chat as we get going the schedule because there's quite a few events still taking place and I'd love for you to check them out. Second thing, as you kind of already noticed, we are recording today's event, so our online students have access to the recording at a later date. So just a little heads up there. Third, I'm going to be dropping a virtual sign-in sheet because some of your professors asked they're giving extra credit and they would like to know who attended. So please just, make sure you fill out the virtual sign-in form. It's really easy. And then fourth, this is a new one for students participating or wanting to participate in SIU's first ever ADEI certificate. This event is an approved event and can be counted as you fulfill the requirements necessary to achieve the certificate. And I'll give more information by dropping the website down there so that you can get information in case you're interested in participating in the ADEI certificate. So now, before I turn it over to Carla, I just wanted to mention that Carla is a Miami-raised, Honduran-born immigrant, first-generation professional, career strategist, mindset coach, and she has been promoting equity, diversity, and inclusion and belonging in different capacities for over 10 years. She has a great podcast called the First Gen Coach Podcast. It's a career and lifestyle podcast where first-generation professionals learn to rethink limiting cultural beliefs, how to advance in their careers, and build generational wealth. I really could go on and on and on, but I'm going to stop myself and turn this over to Carla. So please help me virtually welcome Carla.
Thank you so much for that wonderful intro. I am really, really excited to be here. I have been looking forward to this event for some time now, and I am just really pumped that we're here. So it's an honor. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and do the whole share my screen dance that we all seem to do. Let's see. Let's go to present. Okay, excellent. So can you all see my screen? Oh, yes, I can see it. I have backup on my phone because, Jennifer, do not worry, Mercury is in retrograde. So I think all of us are going to be experiencing some sort of technical, logistical, fun, unexpected challenges. So you all heard a little bit about me. I'd love to know who's in the room. I'd love to just, see if folks could maybe say hi, type it in the chat and see what your semester goals are. I have been in this, I'm gonna, just go ahead and go. So I'm a first generation everything. I've been, prior to my current role, I spent about 10 years in higher ed and 10 years, not just higher ed, but also in K through 12 and in the nonprofit education sector. So the start of the semester is my favorite time of year. I mean, I'm also a Virgo, so September is my birthday. So there's a lot of things that I love about the new semester. So I'd love to hear what some of your semester goals are, because it is a really great time to set those goals. So as Jennifer said, I'm Honduran-born, Miami-raised. I have a podcast. I was recently featured on Univision, which was really exciting. And I am very, very happy to be here today. Okay, let's see. So today we're going to talk about three things. First one is, what is a first-generation professional? So those of you who are in the room are probably very familiar with the term first-generation college student or first-generation graduate. But what is a first-generation professional? This is a term that isn't as widely known, but the experience is so common. So that'll be the first thing that we sort of go over. The next thing is how to thrive as a first-generation professional. And then lastly is how to be an ally to first-generation professionals. So you'll see FGP or first-generation professionals or even just first-gen. Just know that that's what I'm referencing to. That's what I'm referencing. Okay. All right, so what is a first-generation professional? Let's start there. So this is a white-collar professional from a working-class background. So this is someone usually in a role or in a job or in an industry that traditionally requires a 4-year degree. and that is coming from a working class background, or sometimes known as blue collar, or maybe differently skilled in that doesn't usually, like maybe technical skills or vocational that doesn't usually require a 4-year degree. So to put it simply, if you're a first-gen student, you're going to graduate to become a first-generation professional. So I'd love to know if there are any of you who are or will be FGPs. Just let us know in the chat. Well, let me know, because I would love to know it. I'd love to know who's in the room and who I'm speaking with. Now, before we get started, think about life before SIUC. So I hope that you all like this image. I've had quite a bit of fun looking at images of your beautiful campus. So I'd love to know how you decided that this was the best institution for you. Did you maybe go on a college tour? Did you maybe go to the school that your parents or your family member went to, also known as a legacy admission or legacy decision? Or was this a recommendation from your mentors? And the reason that I want to pause here and really just frame it from this is that life as a first-generation student and eventually as a first-generation professional, the path looked a lot different. For me, for many of us who are first gen, who are the first in our families to go to college and to have that experience, there were so many things to navigate, so many choices to make, but not necessarily all the information. So for example, should I take the SAT or the ACT? What is a liberal arts college? What is a research university? What is private versus public? All of these things. So the different types of institution, also personally, I mentioned I was Honduran-born. So it's like, how does my immigration status affect the choices that I have in terms of what school I attend? And also, what's the FAFSA? And why is it asking me so many choices? And I know that I'm not the only one. There's actually like a very common shared experience among first gen is, like if you can fill out the FAFSA on your own, you can do anything. So these are some of the things that kind of are hallmarks for first generation students, because we don't have that generational knowledge, but that's not to say that it is lacking. Because in spite of all of the things that I mentioned, here we are. So there's a picture of my parents. I always got to shout out my parents because I love them so much and they really have made me who I am. So every time I get to share a picture of them, I do. So thanks for indulging me. But it's not just me, actually. 46%, I'm sorry, not 46, 42% of college graduates in 2016 were first generation college graduates. Now, why 2016? Because that's the most relevant data, recent data that I could find. So first generation college graduate, a first generation student is someone, as I'm sure you all know, but I just want to say it just in case, so that we're all on the same level, is a first generation student is someone whose parents did not acquire a bachelor's degree. A continuing generation student is someone whose parents acquired, who at least one parent acquired a college degree. So here we are, almost half of college graduates are first generation college graduates. Now, I think that is really remarkable. I had no idea that the number was so high. Now, let's explore the first gen student experience. And once again, as a DEI practitioner, I know that we all process things in different ways. I also want to say participation is voluntary and encouraged. So it's okay if you're a little shy. It's okay if you're listening to this while you're out on a walk. But if you have any questions, please feel free to use the hand raise feature or to put any question in the chat. So I wanted to say that. Now, going back, let's explore the first gen student experience a little bit more. Now, this is undergraduate student use of career planning services. Now, this is for recent grads, and again, 2015, 2016 recent grads, 24% of first-gen college students participated in career fairs, while 30% of continuing generation college students participated in career fairs. Now, I want to acknowledge These numbers are not necessarily great for either student population. Like, I think that both of them could use a lot more robust participation. However, even though both of them are still, relatively low, first generation students participated less than continuing generation students. I think I went to a career fair maybe like the month before I graduated from undergrad, and I don't even remember how I think I just casually waltzed in there. There was like no preparation. I think I might have like printed my resume at the student center and then like, oh yeah, I'll go. Was not wearing, like job interview clothes. It was not pretty, but it's okay. I didn't know better, and I am graceful with myself. And now this is why I speak in events like this, because it is campus career planning services are probably some of the best resources that you have. Now, there's also received another service is resume and cover letter assistance. So once again, we see that there's a disparity between what first gen students, between the level of first gen student participation and continuing generation student participation. So once again, continuing generation students use these services more. I definitely did not use them in undergrad, and apparently neither did 72% of other first gen students, which is really unfortunate because I want to ask this question. I mean, how do you think that this discrepancy in career planning support affects life after graduation? I mean, so I'm going to pause there. If you're not going to a career fair, what are the likelihoods that you're going to graduate with a job? If you're not receiving resume or cover letter support, what is the likelihood that once your resume is in the hands of a hiring manager, that that it'll be formatted in the best way and that it'll highlight your strengths in the best way? So here is what we can do. All right, because this all starts now. I actually had a meme here, it's like barriers, no, opportunities, yes, but I took it out, and I think I probably should have left it in, but anyway, it's all good. I don't want you to think that this is going to be like a negative presentation or like, kind of focused on the barriers that first gens face, because we know what those barriers are. And I want you to really focus on the opportunities and really focus on the actionable steps that you can take in order to thrive as a first gen student, as a first gen professional. So these are the three things that I'm going to cover. Use available resources, build genuine relationships, and asking for help. So let's start there. Universities are a treasure trove of resources. Use them. Because your tuition dollars is already paying for them. That was my favorite thing to like really remind myself. It's like all of these resources on campus, I'm technically already paying for them, might as well go use them. Now, what does that look like? Once again, career center. It may be the faculty and staff office hours. It may be your alumni association, but you can also have the resources both on campus physically, but then virtually. Libraries are a cornerstone of democracy, all right? So libraries are truly probably some of my favorite institutions. One of the things that I did to get through grad school was I would request a book in the library on campus, and then they would bring it down to the front desk, and then I would just pick it up from there. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing I could have ever figured out, because then I didn't have to spend those extra 15 minutes upstairs looking for the book. It was such a great service, and I highly recommend that you use all the services available to you. I don't know, does SICUs have Handshake? Yeah, okay, so definitely, okay, thank you. So Handshake, also really important. Make sure that's how you can find out about some career fairs. That's how you can, like start building relationships with potential employers. That's how you can start learning how to position yourself in as the strongest candidate for specific roles. And just this being resourceful really is a skill that is that takes a long time to develop. So if you start being resourceful now, as you progress in your career, whether it's your first job after college or whether it's your first promotion, you will know how to be resourceful, and you will be able to apply those skills as you progress. So find and use available resources is one of the first steps to thriving as a first gen. Excuse me. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is building genuine relationships. You've probably heard a lot of people talk about networking, and you have to network and you have to build your network. And I understood networking when I was in college. I understood networking to mean talk to people to see what you can get from them. Like, I thought that's the way that networking had been explained to me. Like, oh, you have to go talk to people because maybe they can help you get a job. And that always felt kind of really, really gross. Like, I was like, you want me to talk to someone just to see what I can get from them? That's terrible. So for the longest time, networking had this negative connotation. But once I reframed it, it's not this surface level networking. Focus on building genuine relationships. All right. And there's so many opportunities that you have on campus. Think about any clubs that you may belong to. Think about your classmates or your peers. Think about internships, like your fellow cohorts. Some of my closest friends who I still regularly talk to are the fellows who were in my internship cohort in like almost 10 years ago. So they are my friends. And from a broader perspective, I'm like, oh yeah, like friends and family are, they're part of your network. Also talk to, and again, I don't want you to think about like networking. I would definitely encourage you to think about building genuine relationships, building authentic relationships. A network is actually just a group of people who are tied together by mutual interests. Your basket weaving club is a network. Your Dungeons and Dragons group is a network. Like your farmers market, friends is a network. These are all genuine relationships that are based on mutual respect and commonalities and interests. So focus on building genuine relationships. Another thing is guest speakers. But also many other folks who may be like I used to be so scared of talking to people who like gave presentations. Like I was like, oh my God, you must be so busy. And yeah, people are busy, but people are also just people, like it's okay to just talk to someone like you would talk to a human. Think if you are in line at a Starbucks, for example, and you're like waiting in line and you talk to the person in front of you like, oh, hey, I like your shoes. Oh, thanks. I got them on sale. Like that's just normal human interaction. So I don't want you to think about networking in this really like stuffy, negative way, like transactional, the way that I was taught networking. I really want you to focus on the genuine human interactions that are going to be long-term. And I'll go into a little bit in just a second. There's also, I don't know why 2016 has been like relevant data, but a 2016 study found that 85% of jobs, that's supposed to say jobs, are filled through networking. Now, here's the thing. I haven't been able to find the original data. I have seen this statistic everywhere. 85% of jobs are filled through networking. And I really, really tried to find the data. It has been attributed to HubSpot. It has also been attributed to the US Department of Labor Statistics. So I can't vouch for it. And as someone who is like a huge fan of media literacy, I definitely want to teach you to question data and to look up your sources. That's why I'm going to pause right there. And you may have noticed that in my previous, whenever I mention a statistic, I mentioned my sources. So just a note on that one. So I don't know if that 85% number is data that I would trust, but here's the thing, you should network anyway. I'm going to share with you my personal experience in the job search and thriving as a first-gen professional, networking and without networking. So I was doing the numbers. I didn't realize how much of a data person I was or how much of data I had put in here. But here's the thing. So when I was job searching, I submitted 26 applications over several months. 13 of those applications were no responses. It was just me like screaming into the void of an ATS. 11 of those applications were auto-generated rejections. Like, I remember one time I spent like 2 days formatting my resume and writing the perfect cover letter. And then like, by the time I woke up the next morning, I had already received a rejection email. That was rough, but I digress. And out of those, I received 2 human responses. So one was a no, and then one was an interview. And then based on that interview, I got a job offer. So that is one job search that I have personally gone through. And this is without networking. Now, the next time around, I decided to have a job search specifically focusing on my network. I stopped counting the number of applications and I started counting the number of genuine relationships that I made and the number of genuine connections that I made. So I made 30 connections. I had 30 different conversations with people about wonderful, different things, learning their career story, learning if there's anything that we have in common. From those 30 connections, I got 7 job interviews. So already in my previous one, I only got 1 job interview. So I'm already doing better here. I also got 2 speaking engagements and 2 podcast features by focusing on my network, by focusing on building connections. I also accepted a job offer within 90 days. And as a first gen, I'm sharing that I was the first person in my family, in my lineage, to be making 6 figures. And I share that because as an immigrant, that isn't a story that is widely told. That isn't the perception of immigrants. That isn't the perception of first generation professionals. And this was possible because I leaned on my network, but also because I worked really hard. So I want you to know that your network is powerful. You should develop it. You should nurture it. You should use it. And I also want you to know that your network can help you get in the door. Your network can help get your resume, looked at by a human, but your network isn't necessarily going to get you the job. Your skills are going to get you the job. Your preparation is going to get you the job. Your work ethic is going to get you the job. All right. That is all in your hands. So yeah, so definitely focus on building relationships, on building genuine connections with people so that you can have more doors open. And so you can kind of just get the attention of a human to look at you, to talk to you, to look at your resume. But just know that it's not that they got you the job, your skills got you the job, right? I always want to make that distinction. Your network may get you your resume noticed by a human, but it is your skills and your hard work and your preparation that is going to get you the job. Which brings me to the third.
Uh-oh, Carla. So Carla's in Florida and she was having some Wi-Fi issues because of the impending hurricane. And she has her iPhone on backup. So Carla, if you need to, you can switch to your iPhone. And just let me know if you want me to pick up where you are with your slides. But it's definitely a day here, people. So let's see. Wait for her to.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to pull up your slides and then I will share my screen so we can continue where we're going. So
Thank you. And so see, this is why I had my backup phone. Yeah, it has been, so just so you all know, as I mentioned, I'm based out of South Florida. So we've been having kind of like hurricane winds and anyway, so that might have knocked the Wi-Fi out. So prior to the call, I sent the slides over. So hopefully we can get there.
So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna share my screen, it's gonna be your slides, and then just tell me when you want me to scroll around, okay?
Okay.
Can you see your slides?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And you all see me still?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, so asking for help. So if you can go to the next one. We are all really like social-minded people. I mean, we're communities, you know, we're as humans, we're community-minded. We didn't exist to be hyper-independent. We actually want to help each other. Think about the last time that you helped someone. Did you feel good? I mean, I hope it felt good, you know, and that's, other people feel good when they help you too. So please ask for help. I recently made this joke of like, you know, like, why would I ask for help in 5 minutes when I can just torture myself for 5 hours trying to do it on my own? So, I mean, obviously that is a joke. Please do not torture yourself for 5 hours if it would take just 5 minutes just to ask for that help, because it really can help you get results faster. We can go. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, now I want to talk about now. So before we continue, are there any questions before we go? All right, and thank you so much, Christina, for sharing some excellent, some excellent backup data. I do appreciate that. I very much always check my sources, and I encourage you all to pause. I know that today's conversation is about thriving as a first-gen professional, but I really can't take the mic and not cite my sources. All right, now, how to be an ally. So maybe you are not first generation professional. Maybe you're not a first generation grad, and you have, you know, like both of your parents went to college, and both of your parents have had jobs, you know, like and careers, and helped you get the SAT tutoring that you needed. Great. Now it is up to you to become an ally for first gen professionals, because remember, as continuing generation students, you may have been part of that, what, like, was it 58% who were continuing education, but almost half of your peers, almost half of your classmates were first generation. So so there's 3 ways to become an ally that I'll be talking about today. Is to share your knowledge, to facilitate introductions, and to be a sponsor or a champion. So the first one, share your knowledge. There's this common knowledge myth, but common knowledge is actually the result of generational learning. So examples of common knowledge can be, actually, if you can go to the next one, these are 3 things that I was taught, well, that I learned from friends, or, you know, just different folks on campus. Ask questions at the end of an interview. I didn't know that I could ask questions at the end of an interview. I remember I was in college and I was interviewing for jobs. And one time I was interviewing for a job, and the person who was supposed to interview me didn't show up for like an hour. I was early, you know, I was young. I stick around. I don't think I would stick around for an hour these days. But anyway, he felt so terrible. He was like, all right, sorry, I thought you got my email. I want to make it up to you. Let's do some career coaching. So I don't really remember much of the conversation, but what I do remember is that he told me to ask questions at the end of the interview. And I told him, well, I don't have questions. And he says, well, if you don't have questions, you don't really want the job. And so we talked about that. We talked about how job interviewing is like a mutual exchange. Now, I'm glad I learned that early in my career, but there's other things I didn't learn. A couple of years later, I was getting ready to graduate. I was graduating in May. I had an AmeriCorps job that ended in August. And I remember talking to someone like, oh yeah, I have a job until August. So, you know, like, I'll worry about it then. And he was looking at me like, you should worry about it now. You should start looking for jobs now. You know, so like this concept of you should be looking for a job before you graduate, that was totally new to me. Like, somebody had to tell me that. I thought it was just like very few and far between people who graduated with a job after graduation, but apparently not. Apparently you just have to look for jobs before graduation. And that's something that I didn't know. And I didn't know as a first generation professional. I knew that my job ended in August. So I thought my job search started in August. No, please no, please allow yourself around 3 or 4 months to, you know, to look for your next role. And then lastly, something else that a colleague one time said was, you know, like, we have a health savings account through our job. And I was like, oh, tell me more. You know, and again, it's these things that may seem so simple to you as a continuing generation professional, But to someone who just doesn't have that generational knowledge, it can actually be really transformative. So if you want to be an ally to your continuing generation peers, just like share the things that, even if they seem kind of obvious to you, they're not obvious to everyone. Who remembers? And so as I said before, I spent a lot of time as a teacher, as an educator prior to joining the private sector. Does anybody remember your teacher saying, like, if you have a question, you should ask it because someone else probably has that question too? Did anybody ever have a teacher tell them that? See, yeah. Well, that's the same thing with your peers. All right. Like if you have a question, definitely ask it because probably somebody else has that has that question too. But also just know that that's not, it's okay to just share, and out of an abundance of caution, like, yeah, it's like, all right, well, thanks for sharing, Captain Obvious. Like very few people are going to react negatively to you trying to help or just sharing your knowledge. So that's the very first thing that you can do in order to be an ally. And the next thing that you can do is to facilitate introductions. And think about it like this. And I go back to using that word networking, but remember, networking is just mutually great people, people who have a common interest, people who have common goals. Now, as an ally to first generation professionals, what you can do is help the great people in your life get to know each other. Like if someone talks to you about their goals, and you say, hey, I know someone in that field. Would you like me to introduce you? This is kind of like an older saying, so I don't know too many of you, but like there used to be this saying, like 6 degrees of separation. Basically, it says that everybody in the world is connected by like less than 6 people. Like you're 6 handshakes away from meeting anyone. Now we live in this hyper-connected world where that's probably only like 2 or 3 degrees. Like you're 2 or 3 introductions away from everybody else in the world. And as a continuing generation professional, you can be an ally to helping your first gen colleagues increase their network and just, meet some of the other great people in your life who are doing cool things. Think about it that way. It's just why wouldn't you want to introduce 2 great people to each other? All right. And if they happen to vibe and to have some commonalities in the workplace, wonderful. All right. The last way not the last way, but the last thing that we're going to talk about today of how to be an ally is to be a sponsor and a champion. Now, mentoring is a great first step. Mentoring is when you take someone under your wing. Mentoring is, you're maybe a couple of steps ahead of them in your journey. That is a really wonderful step. I am a huge advocate of mentorship. I think I have a pin that says I'm a mentor, like most of my roles have had. Mentoring, wonderful. There is things that you can do beyond mentoring. You can be a sponsor and a champion. So what that means is advocating, like mentoring is kind of like giving, like having like conversations and giving feedback and really providing that like helpful framework. And then when the face-to-face, whether that's virtual or in-person interaction ends, the mentoring kind of like ends. But as a sponsor or even as a champion, as in the workplace, it shows up like this, as this actually especially happens to women and to women of color. Well, they say something and the idea will be ignored, but then, like a man will say it and then it'd be like, oh, great idea, Johnny. So one way that you can be an ally to all women, and especially to all first-gen professionals, is when someone says something, you can even say something like, oh, thank you so much, Carla, for that feedback. Thank you so much, Mary, for that idea. And sort of just naming and reiterating, and just naming the person. That is one way to be an advocate and to sort of interrupt that pattern of first gen's ideas and contributions being overlooked. Now, there's also, this goes back to like facilitating introductions, like, oh, you know who I think you should meet? You should meet so-and-so, like they're interested in this role, or even giving credit. Like if you collaborated on a project and emphasizing the contributions of your first gen peers, all of these are ways that you can be an advocate for first-gen professionals in the workplace. So again, to summarize, the three ways, and I'm so sorry. Okay, so to summarize, you can share your resources, you can facilitate introductions, and you can be a sponsor and a champion. And that's how you can best be an ally to first-gen professionals. In order to thrive as a first-gen professional, definitely be resourceful, build genuine relationships, and ask for help. Now, we're getting close to the end. Can you, next slide, please? Yeah. So I want to leave you with this thought. Be your own best advocate. And actually, I think I added one more thought after I sent it to you, but be your own best advocate. No matter where you are in your career, no matter if you're first generation, no matter if you're continuing generation, no matter what it is, I highly encourage you to speak up for yourself, to take your career into your own hands, to be curious about what else is out there. Be curious about what you can do and be your own best advocate, because no one else can advocate for you to the extent that, you know, that intrinsic advocacy will come from. And one more thing is that being first gen is a strength. So lean into that strength, all right? I recently heard someone say, your uniqueness is not your weakness. And I'm like, I like that it rhymes, but it also sounds like a little patronizing. So like, I'm not sure. So anyway, I'll let you all marinate on that one if you like it. So your uniqueness is not your weakness, but I like framing things in terms of like positive action. Like I said, being first gen is a strength. So thank you all for coming. So can you go to the next slide, please? There is, as a thank you for bearing with me, I definitely want to share this free download. So you can just go to the firstgencoach.com/clarity. And this is a 21-day career clarity challenge. And what I love about this is that it can actually help you regardless of where you are in your career, whether you're a freshman or whether you're the first year student, or whether this is your final graduate, you know, like semester before graduating, or whether you've been in the workforce for 10 years or for 15 years, and you're thinking about your next step. These action and reflection components can help you, I mean, not components, prompts, can help you figure out where you want to go next, can really help you identify your values, can help you identify what it is that you should be looking into. Like all of the things that I shared today about being an ally, about thriving as a first gen, there are bite-sized pieces in each of the 21 days. And I also designed it so that you only spend like 5 or 10 minutes doing it, because trust me, if I have to spend more than that on something, I can get overwhelmed and then I put it off and then it's like, oh my gosh. No, just one reflection question and one action item every day. So 5 or 10 minutes. I really encourage you to do it. You know, yeah, it takes 21 days to build a habit. So if you're intentional about your career just for 21 days and you keep, you know, like, and you do that as a baseline, you really can achieve much more than you could possibly ever imagine. So I can put that in the chat. Let's see. I mean, I'll put it in the chat in just a minute. And the next slide has my contact information, because I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to keep in touch. So you can email me, you can add me on LinkedIn. If you add me on LinkedIn, please let me know, hey, I'm an SICU student. Actually, that's a LinkedIn pro tip. Whenever you add someone, please personalize your invite. My favorite is just like the super easy formula. Hey, it was great connecting at X, Y, or Z. Because guess what? You can forget down the line. It's like, wait, how did we meet? Like I see sometimes people in my LinkedIn, I'm like, how do I know this person? And then I'll open the chat and then I'll see that 2 years ago, I sent them a message. Hey, it was great meeting you at the Women's History Month event on campus. And I was like, I remember. So anyway, that is my last pro tip, I guess, that I'm sneaking in, my LinkedIn pro tip. So you can add me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, send me an email. I really would love to keep in touch. And thank you so much for letting me share this time with you. It really has been an honor.
Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And with the remaining moments that we have, I'm going to open the floor up in case there are any questions for you, because you covered a lot of amazing stuff. So students, now is your chance to connect with Carla. She did have her contact information, and I can, if you need it, if you missed it, didn't take a screenshot of it, I can give that to you. Otherwise, let's go to questions. We do have a couple students in here, so let's see. If you're not careful, I'm going to end up calling on you. Oh, Chris is already raising his hand. All right, Christopher, you're up.
Can everybody hear me fine?
Yes.
First and foremost, thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk to us today. I happen to be a continuing generation student myself, but I can definitely speak to some of the things that you said with first gens, because both my parents happen to be first gens from SIU, so definitely it goes a long way. One of my questions I want to ask pertains to networking. I really want to take advantage, or at least know somewhat, to look for in diverse communities in networking. Like, how do I get in touch with some of those professionals outside of the school resources, like trying to set, whether it be clubs or indoor charities, or some of the works I could do to kind of like boost my overall look as a student?
So is the question how you can best network? I missed that last part.
Yes, basically to surmise, that's exactly what I'm asking. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that is a really great question. I mean, I think that it, like I said, like networking gets a bad rap. But if you focus on what is important to you, like it's one of the reasons why I talk about clarity. If there's a networking part in the 21 days, like if you think about things that you care about, like let's say, what's your major, Christopher?
My major happens to be marketing.
Okay, marketing. So are there any marketing associations? Are there any marketing events? Are there any, so like that may be your major, but are there any other things you're interested in? Maybe you like soccer, maybe you like motorcycle riding, maybe you like sewing, like all of these, like networking and building connections is about that personal connection. Like to me, like I said before, like a network is a group of people who have shared interests. So whether that interest is, graduating from a marketing major and going into, like a marketing firm, or whether that interest is like trying new recipes for the first time, put yourself in places where you want to be. Like, for example, I wouldn't go to, I wouldn't go to a peanut butter convention because I hate peanut butter. I mean, I don't know. I feel like maybe I think someone who wants to go to a peanut butter convention might be like a cool person to hang out with. So maybe that's not the right example, but, follow your interests. And especially right now as a student, you might have a lot more opportunities to network, to go to these clubs, to go to student events, than to, like a little bit later on, it gets, a lot of people say, like as adults, it's a lot harder. But show up for your friends, like if you get an invitation, say like, hey, yes, I want to share this example. I remember when I was a grad student, there was like a presentation on the campus courtyard. And I didn't want to go, to be completely honest. I didn't want to go. I was in the middle of just like something, whatever. The point is, I was like, you know what? My peer, my classmate, my friend is presenting, so let me go support her. So then I went and I ended up talking to the woman who was the department chair for my degree program. And we were talking, and I ended up sharing with her how I was considering a doctoral program and which one specifically. And she said, "Oh, I went to grad school with the director. Do you want an introduction?" Yes, please. And so I share that example because I didn't like stalk this woman on LinkedIn, like find who her roommates were, find anybody, that I might. No, like I just went to an event to support a friend and struck up conversation with someone. And that, and that actually like helped me build that genuine relationship. So I guess to answer your question, go to places where you want to be and be yourself. And that is really the easiest way to build genuine relationships with people.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate the response.
Awesome. Okay. Any other questions? We have Carla for a couple more minutes. So anyone else have any questions, comments, thoughts, reflections? I can keep going with adjectives. All right. So if we don't have any other questions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Carla say one last thing to wrap us up before we let us all out. Carla, do you have any little ending, lasting thoughts that you'd like to leave with us?
Yeah, you know what? I know this is like, be true to yourself, you know, like be the world, you know, like especially as you're getting, you know, getting ready to graduate, getting ready to, you know, potentially maybe like your LinkedIn profile is like, oh, I may, how do I do this? Be yourself. You have your unique skill sets. You have a unique set of experiences. Your perspective matters. Your voice matters. So no matter where you go after tonight, no matter where you go after graduation, no matter where you go after your next role, your voice matters. So speak up.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight and being willing to invest in our students. I dropped in the chat a bunch of different ways, all but your Instagram, pretty much ways to connect with you, and included your links to your podcast on Apple or Spotify. I hope that students take you up on the networking aspect. As we end this evening, Christina, is there anything that you'd like to share right before we go? I want to give you a chance.
Let's see. Actually, of course, right? Actually, we have several events that are still happening during the month of Hispanic month, and one of them is the piñata making workshop this coming Friday. And 4 to 5 supplies are will be provided, and then we have the following Friday, the 7th, October 7th, the Festival Latino. So come dance with us, learn music with us, have fun, enjoy our culture, and all the amazing fun stuff that we do. And then on the 10th, which is Monday 10, October 10, we will have a very special keynote, Saul Flores, with his keynote talk about the work of the immigrants. So that's sure to be an amazing presentation. He is comes from immigrant parents, and he basically takes the walk or the immigration steps that his parents took to come to the United States. So that's supposed to be very powerful. I'm sure it's going to be very powerful. He's amazing. He's very young. And so we can relate in many ways with him. And so you're invited. It's free, open to the public.
Awesome. Please definitely check out those events. Christina has an amazing schedule, and you have several more weeks to participate in some of these events. So please check out the different events. So that pretty much concludes this evening's event. I want to thank all of you for coming, and Carla, thank you so much for battling tech difficulties, Wi-Fi, impending hurricane to speak to our students. We appreciate it so much. Please, everyone, have a wonderful evening.
Be safe, Carla. Nice
Thank
meeting you.
Thank you all. Great meeting you.
Thank you for speaking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.